Paisley Park, Studio A, 3:47 a.m., October 17th, 1986. Prince stood in the center of the room, trumpet in his hands, sweat dripping down his face, eyes bloodshot red. Across from him sat Miles Davis, legs crossed, that signature smirk playing at his lips, watching like a predator who'd been toying with prey for 12 straight hours. The studio was electric with tension. 4 witnesses frozen in their positions. Susan Rogers at the mixing board, hands hovering over controls she'd stopped using hours ago. Sheila E. in the corner, knuckles white from gripping her own knees. Eric Leeds clutching his saxophone like a lifeline. Matt Fink at the keyboards, not daring to move. The air was thick, suffocating, charged with something that felt bigger than music. Prince's hands trembled, not from fear, from something deeper, from 28 years of carrying a weight that was about to either crush him completely or finally break free. Miles leaned forward, that cruel smile widening. "Kid, put that horn down before you embarrass yourself. You're a pop star playing dress up." Prince lifted the trumpet to his lips, closed his eyes, and when he played that first note, the room froze. Because that note carried more pain than Miles Davis had heard in 30 years of jazz, 10 years earlier. Minneapolis, 1976. Prince was 18, sitting in his father's basement studio, surrounded by walls covered with jazz legends. Miles, Coltrane. Parker staring down at him from faded posters. Upstairs, John Nelson was listening to a Miles Davis record, the same record he played every Sunday. Prince had been working on a funk track, something raw and young and his. His father's voice cut through the floorboards. "Turn that garbage off." Prince climbed the stairs, found his father in the living room. That Miles Davis album spinning on the turntable. "Dad, I can play jazz too." John Nelson's laugh was sharp, cutting. "You make pop music, son. Jazz is too deep for you." That sentence landed like a blade. Prince returned to the basement, picked up his father's old trumpet from the corner where it had been collecting dust for years and tried to play. The notes came out broken, uncertain, nothing like what was playing upstairs. Nothing like what his father respected. He set the instrument down and didn't touch it again for 2 years. 1978. Prince had just released his first album, For You. 20 years old, drowning in his own ambition, desperate to prove he belonged everywhere. He walked into a jazz club in downtown Minneapolis one Thursday night, trumpet case in hand. The owner looked him up and down, took in the flared pants and platform shoes. "We don't do disco here, kid." Prince opened his mouth to argue, but someone from the crowd shouted, "Stick to your synthesizers, Prince. Jazz is for real musicians." The laughter that followed him out the door was worse than any bad review. That night something hardened in Prince. If the jazz world didn't want him, fine. He'd conquer everything else. By 1984, he had. Purple Rain dominated the planet, Grammys, sold-out stadiums, his face on every magazine cover. The night of the Grammy ceremony, high on victory and champagne, Prince called his father. "Dad, I won a Grammy." John Nelson's voice came through flat, unimpressed. "Pop Grammy. Call me when you win a jazz Grammy." Click. The line went dead. Prince sat in his hotel room, Grammy statue in one hand, dead phone in the other, and something inside him shattered quietly. He never told anyone about that call. For 2 years, Prince avoided jazz completely, buried himself in funk, rock, R&B, anything but the music that reminded him of his father's disappointment. Until October 1986, when his phone rang at Paisley Park. "Prince? Miles Davis. I hear you play trumpet. Come to my session tomorrow. Let's see if you're real." Prince's hand shook, holding the receiver. Miles Davis, the living God his father worshipped, calling him. That night, Prince didn't sleep. He pulled out his father's trumpet, the one he'd kept all these years, and tried to play. The notes came easier now, years of musical mastery translating across instruments. But were they good enough? Were they real enough? At 6 a.m., he gave up trying to sleep and just waited for Miles to arrive. Miles showed up at 2 p.m., 40 minutes late, moving with that languid confidence of someone who'd never doubted himself in his life. He walked into Studio A, looked around at Prince's carefully arranged setup, the purple lights, the pristine equipment, and his face showed exactly what he thought. Cute setup, looks like a toy store. Prince extended his hand. Miles, welcome. I'm honored that you'd... Miles ignored the hand. Don't be, you invited me. Now impress me. The session started simple. Miles put on all blues, one of his own classics. Play, he commanded. Prince picked up the trumpet, channeled everything he'd practiced for weeks, and delivered 16 bars of technically perfect jazz. Miles held up his hand. Stop! Prince lowered the instrument. Too clean. Too perfect. No pain. Let me try again. No. Pain isn't something you try, kid. You either have it or you don't. For the next 9 hours, Miles systematically deconstructed everything Prince played. Every attempt met with criticism that cut deeper than the last. At 4 p.m., Prince tried a bebop run. Miles stopped him after 4 bars. You're counting. Real musicians feel. At 6 p.m., Prince attempted a ballad. Miles cut him off. You play like someone who learned jazz from books. Did you? Prince's silence was answer enough. At 7:30 p.m., Miles lit a cigarette, leaned back. You know what your problem is? You're afraid of the silence between notes. That's where jazz lives. But you fill every space because that's what pop music taught you. Prince tried again. Miles laughed. There. You did it again. You're so desperate to impress me that you forgot to breathe. You play like a pop star. All surface, no depth. Your technique is good. Your soul is missing. Then at 8:45 p.m., Miles delivered the kill shot. Maybe your daddy was right about you. That last one made Prince's head snap up. How did Miles know? But Miles just smiled, enjoying the hit he'd landed. I called John Nelson yesterday, asked him about you. He told me everything. Prince felt the floor drop. By 9 p.m., Sheila E. approached Prince during a break. Prince, maybe we should stop. No, we continue. He's destroying you. Because I'm letting him. That changes now. But it didn't change. Miles only got more brutal as the night progressed. At 10:15 p.m., he made Prince play the same 8 bars 23 times in a row. Each time. Again. At 11:30 p.m., Miles stood up, walked to Prince, took the trumpet from his hands. Let me show you what you're missing. Miles played the same 8 bars Prince had been struggling with. When Miles played it, the notes wept. When Prince played it, they just existed. Miles handed the trumpet back. You hear the difference? Prince nodded, throat tight. By midnight, Prince had attempted the same piece 15 different ways. Each time, Miles stopped him. Again. 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 At 2:30 a.m., after 12 hours of psychological warfare, Prince tried one final time. Miles cut him off after 8 bars. Kid, you're embarrassing yourself. Go back to making hits. This isn't your world. Miles stood up, stretched, grabbed his jacket. I thought you were different, Prince. But you're just another entertainer playing musician. He headed for the door. Thanks for wasting my time, kid. 10 seconds of absolute silence. Prince stood there, trumpet hanging from his hand, watching his last chance at validation walk away. In his mind, his father's voice echoed, Jazz is too deep for you. Miles reached the door, hand on the handle, and Prince made a choice. He lifted the trumpet to his lips, closed his eyes, and began to play So What? Miles's own composition, Miles's signature piece. But this wasn't Miles's version. This was something else entirely. The opening note came out broken, raw, human. It sustained impossibly long, trembling with something that transcended technique. Miles's hand froze on the door handle. He turned slowly. The note continued, building, becoming a voice, becoming a scream. Prince didn't play the melody as written. He deconstructed it, fed it through 28 years of accumulated pain. His father's rejection became the second phrase. The jazz club humiliation became the third. That Grammy night phone call became a long, stuttering run that sounded like weeping. And Miles's 12 hours of systematic destruction became the final cadenza, A cascade of notes that shouldn't have been possible on a trumpet but were, because Prince wasn't playing music anymore. He was confessing. Susan Rogers stopped touching the board. Her hands were shaking too badly. Sheila E. had tears streaming down her face. Eric Leeds stared at Prince like he'd never seen him before. And Miles Davis, the man who'd heard everything, who'd played with everyone, who'd invented half of modern jazz, stood frozen at the door with tears running down his face. 3 minutes and 27 seconds. Prince played without opening his eyes once. The trumpet became an extension of his voice, his pain, his rage at every person who'd ever told him he wasn't enough. At 45 seconds, Sheila E.'s breath caught audibly. The melody Prince was creating shouldn't have been possible on trumpet. He was bending notes that shouldn't been, finding harmonics in the spaces between standard notes. At 1 minute, 12 seconds, Eric Leeds recognized what Prince was doing. He wasn't just playing So What? He was having a conversation with Miles through Miles's own composition, answering every criticism from the past 12 hours in musical language. At 1 minute 50 seconds, the tempo shifted. Prince's playing became more aggressive, more insistent. Susan Rogers' hands hovered over the board, torn between her instinct to capture this and her knowledge that some moments are too sacred to record. At 2 minutes 15 seconds, Matt Fink whispered, "Oh my God," and nobody shushed him because they were all thinking the same thing. This wasn't jazz anymore. This wasn't any genre. This was human emotion translated directly into sound. Every note was a battle. Every phrase was a prayer. Every silence between notes screamed louder than sound. Miles stood transfixed, trumpet hanging forgotten from his own hand. Watching Prince do something Miles himself had only achieved a handful of times in 50 years of playing. Transform suffering into transcendence. When he hit the final note, he held it for 12 seconds. Impossible breath control, impossible technique. The note trembled, peaked, sounded like it would shatter. Then it faded. Silence crashed back into the room. Prince opened his eyes. His face was wet. He didn't remember starting to cry. Miles slowly walked back across the studio. Reached Prince, gently took the trumpet from his hands, and pulled Prince into an embrace. Not gentle, not soft. The kind of hug that holds someone together when they're falling apart. Miles whispered, just loud enough for Prince to hear. "Your father was wrong. You're not a pop star. You're a musician. Maybe better than me." Prince collapsed. 28 years of carrying that weight, and Miles's words cut the ropes. He sobbed into Miles's shoulder like a child, body-shaking sobs that came from somewhere primal. Sheila E. moved first, wrapping her arms around both of them. Then Eric Leeds, Matt Fink, Susan Rogers. In the center of Studio A, 5 musicians held each other in silence, while Prince finally let go of the thing that had been killing him since he was 18 years old. After long minutes, Miles pulled back, held Prince's face in his hands. "I broke you tonight. You know why?" Prince shook his head, unable to speak. "Because I needed to see if you'd stay broken. Most people, they break in the first hour. They walk away, protect their ego. You stayed 12 hours. You let me tear you apart because somewhere inside, you knew you needed to be torn apart to find what was real." Miles smiled, and for the first time that night, there was no cruelty in it. "Tonight I didn't break you, Prince. I freed you." Susan Rogers looked at Prince. "Do you want me to save that recording?" Prince stared at the console. 12 hours of destruction, 3 minutes of transcendence, all captured on tape. "Delete it." Miles raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "Because tonight wasn't about music. It was about something else." Miles's smile widened. "Now you understand." At 6:30 a.m., Miles headed for the door one final time. He paused at the threshold, looked back at Prince sitting alone in the center of the studio, trumpet in his lap. "Prince, next time someone tells you that you can't do something, prove them wrong by doing it better than they ever could. That's what you did tonight." He walked out into the Minnesota dawn. Prince sat alone for another hour. Then he picked up the phone and called his father. "Prince, it's 7 in the morning. Dad, I played jazz tonight. Real jazz." With Miles Davis. Silence on the other end. Then, in a voice Prince had never heard from his father before. How was it? He said I was good. John Nelson's voice cracked. Son, I'm sorry. I was wrong about you. They talked for 2 hours. When Prince finally hung up, he felt lighter than he had in a decade. 5 years later, in what would be one of his final interviews before his death, Miles Davis was asked about collaborations. Is it true you recorded with Prince? Yeah, 1986, Paisley Park. Will it ever be released? Miles looked directly at the camera. No, some sessions aren't meant for the world. They're meant for the soul. He paused, that familiar smirk returning. That night, a pop star became a musician. When Prince died in 2016, archivists searched Paisley Park for the Miles session. It was never found. Prince had truly deleted it, but they did find Susan Rogers' notebook. One entry dated October 17, 1986. 3:47 a.m. Prince played So What on trumpet. 3:27 duration. Miles Davis cried, in 30 years of recording, I've never heard anything like it. This was the night Prince stopped trying to prove he was enough. He just was. What voice are you still trying to silence? Whose approval are you still chasing? And after 12 hours of being torn apart, what's your version of So What? Drop a comment, hit subscribe. Because Prince's story is your story, only the instruments are different.